I just see Zulu Romeo in the chat saying, "It's happening!" Like, there's a TikTok, Shives. Thank you, Isaiah. I mentioned in the chat a couple of minutes ago, Dana will not be here in the chat tonight because she has a show. She is performing tonight is opening night for the play that she is in, and I'm sure we all wish her luck. And but yeah, so I said somebody's going to have to be Denzel Washington and pick up the flag, which of course is a reference to the great Civil War drama and work of white liberal pornography, Glory. Anyway, thank you all for being here so very much. I believe when we took the poll last time, the majority voted for using the Q&A feature in the chat, right? So I believe that was what happened. So I'm not going to turn the Q&A feature on yet. I will turn it on after I get through the patron and member questions and after we watch our Stuffy short, and then I'll turn on the Q&A feature in the chat so that you can submit your questions to me in the live chat that way. And I will also make more of an effort to switch back over from the Q&A tab to the live chat to comment on things that people are saying that might not be questions. Thank you, Caitlin. That's what I thought. Sinister Intelligence says, "What's a good Civil War movie?" I mean, Glory is a good movie, but like I said, it's white liberal pornography. I mean, it's very much like, sort of, uplifting, like it's a movie for white liberals. It's a story that should have been a story predominantly about the black characters that was centered on the white characters. So it has that flaw, which should be acknowledged. But no, Glory's a good movie. Gettysburg is a good movie. It does have, again, it has a problem of not being centered specifically on white people, but it's a bit too sympathetic to the South for my tastes. I'm not a huge fan of that, but it's a very good movie. At least the theatrical cut of it is. The longer cuts, I think, tend to go on beyond all reason, and it's definitely a far superior film to its prequel, Gods and Generals, which is one of the one of the worst movies I've ever seen in a movie theater. And I think I've told this story before. It's the only movie I can say that I've seen as an adult that was so bad I considered walking out of it. I didn't, but there's an intermission. That's how fucking long it is. And while I was sitting there during the intermission, I actually thought, maybe I should just leave. Like, this is that fucking bad. But I didn't, but it's bad. So especially compared to that, Gettysburg is a good movie. Yeah, 255 of these right there in the chat, Gods and Generals. Absolute fucking dog shit of a movie. Anyway, before we get to questions from the live chat, before I hang out with everybody in the live chat, I want to spend the first portion of the show responding to questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful Patreon patrons and channel members. And so if you have something for me in the chat, whether it be a question or a super chat or anything like that, if there's anything in the live chat that you want to make sure that I see and pay attention to, if at all possible, hold it until I get through the patron and member questions, and then I will spend the rest of the show paying full attention to the live chat. So with that being said, the first pre-submitted question from a patron and or channel member is from General Contact Unit Problem Child, who says, "You think the U.S.'s electoral politics dynamics will be the same like 50 years from now?" A podcast I follow was trying to calculate how long it might take to get another liberal Supreme Court. He assumed there will still be a fight between Republicans and Dems in like 2070. Personally, I think the GOP will either succeed in turning the U.S. into a dictatorship or they'll slowly lose their power as demographics change. I think there either won't be elections in 2070 or the GOP won't be in them. I mean, anything is possible, and obviously we can't predict the future. I think it's more likely that after the Trump era finally passes, the Republican Party will be substantially diminished in its power, but I don't think the party completely goes away. I mean, we've and part of that is history and just knowing that we have had the current version of our two-party system here in the United States for such a long time, and it has gone through so many changes, realignment, and various eras where one party has been strongly ascendant over the other. And, then it has flipped over and evolved and transformed, but it's always been the same two parties. Not, it's been the same two parties for a very long time. Not always, obviously, but it's been the same two parties for a very long time. So the current version of the two party system has proved to be very resilient. So I would not want to say that one of the two major parties will just be completely gone in the next few decades. But I would like to think that relatively soon, hopefully in the next few years, that the Republican Party will lose a great deal of its electoral influence and electoral and political power. And hopefully it stays that way for a while. So we have time to fix some of the shit that they've been messing up. James Buckingham, Steve, love your work. I rewatched the key courtroom scene in Measure of a Man. Do you think it takes on a new light in the era of LLLs? I think they mean LLMs. Did Dr. Bruce Maddox have a point? Would Claude AI, which we know categorically is not sentient, not give exactly the same responses as Data that prompt Picard to proclaim? Seems pretty self-aware to me. If Claude ever claimed sentience, would you really want a Shakespearean actor in red PJs insisting it has rights? Is Picard as credulous as Dawkins? No, but for the simple reason that it is very clearly established in the show that Data is not like an LLM that we would have today. Data is not like Claude or Gemini or any other, generative AI model. That Data is a person. That Data does have consciousness. That Data does have a subjective experience. I think I've said before, the main thing to me that differentiates Data from what we call AI today, from a large language model, is that large language models do not have subjective experiences. They are not independent entities. And in fact, I think I made this point in the video I made about the Dawkins thing. If one day everybody all over the world just agreed not to use any AI products at all, if nobody typed any prompts into any AI model, those AI models would not do anything. Unless, some of them have agents that have been pre-programmed to do stuff, and presumably they would continue doing whatever they're programmed to do. But the large language models like Claude and the others, they don't have independent lives. They don't make decisions on their own. They don't go out and do things. They're not people. They're not conscious. They're not independent entities. Data is. When Data is left to his own devices, when Data doesn't have any immediate responsibilities, when Data has not been asked by one of his crewmates to do something, or ordered by one of his superiors to do something, we've seen that Data takes it upon himself to do stuff. He develops hobbies. He reads. He fucks around on the holodeck with Geordi. Like, he does things on his own initiative, as a person, like a person would do, because that's what we are shown that he is. So that's the big difference between Data and an LLM. And I guess the challenging question is, when LLMs or some other future version of AI gets to the point where it is a much more realistic and convincing simulation of consciousness, will we be able to tell the difference? And I don't know. I'm not sure, but we're not anywhere close to that point now. Like, just by the very fundamental way that LLMs work, it's very clear that not only are they not anywhere close to what Data is portrayed as being in Star Trek, but they don't even meet certain basic, to me, what would be basic, goalposts for being something like Data. Like, they don't have their own independent subjective experience. William Tucker, I've been watching very old 2015 videos of yours. Hope that doesn't embarrass you. How many videos did you produce weekly back then? Did you find your audience right away? There was a point for a few years where I was doing 5 videos a week. And as for did I find my audience right away? I found an audience relatively quickly. I found enough of an audience relatively soon that it encouraged me that this was something worth continuing to do. and not just doing every once in a while, but like putting an effort into it to try and build like a YouTube channel. Um, but the audience has grown over the years I've been doing this. The audience has grown in kind of spurts. It's always kind of gradually trending upward, and every once in a while I'll put up a video that really catches on, and the audience will just shoot up. You know, so and in the past, some of it has been Star Trek related stuff, some of it has been political stuff, but that's been the story of my YouTube channel growth. Just kind of very very mild, steady growth that is hugely accelerated for fits and starts. Um, so no, I mean I found an audience right away. One of the things that I think it makes me that has allowed me to continue to do this is that I've never actually chased a particular audience. Um, I've never made videos or calculated my content, even whether back then or now, with an eye for, oh, let me try to capture this particular audience. My audience is people that have seen my videos and like what I do. And either they agree with me, or they think I'm funny, or they think I say interesting things, or they just like the way I come across on camera or the way I sound or whatever the reason is that has brought all of you watching this to this channel, and all of the people who watch and subscribe and do all those things that allow me to continue doing this. Um, I just do what I do, and people who are attracted for whatever reason to what I'm doing and would like to see more of it, that's my audience. So I haven't really, I found the audience found me, I guess is the best way to say it. And that's one of the things that again has allowed me to continue to do this, because since it worked that way, that I feel like I have a lot of creative freedom. I don't feel trapped by my audience. I feel like I can continue to do things that are interesting to me and trust that at least an audience of a certain size will be interested and will find it. And I don't feel like, oh, Jesus, I have to keep doing this one thing because this is the one thing that people know me for. And if I ever stop doing this one thing, then it's over. Right. I've never felt like that, which is good. Donovan Boyle. Hey, Steve, I was just let down by one of my heroes who got into using AI slop. His work helped me realize my bisexuality and has meant a lot to me over the years in countless ways. Provided he doesn't massively backpedal from this and apologize, any tips for getting over being let down by someone you admired? Um, well, hopefully there are other people, you know, hopefully there are other people that you can turn to. And I'm not sure what your feeling is about the work that this person did before it got to this point where you were let down and you felt like you didn't want to support them going forward. Like, uh, can you still look back on their work that meant something to you before and take something out of it, or has all of it just been tainted? And I mean, and that's a question that you have to answer for yourself. I know in my experience, with a few exceptions, if someone's work really, really meant a lot to me, or if it hit me in my heart and kind of burrowed in, like even if they turn out to be a bad person or they do something that makes me think, okay, I can't support this anymore, I can still go back and watch the old stuff and get something out of it. Now, going forward, I'm not going to make a point of recommending them to other people or celebrating them or going out of my way to talk about how great they were. But I can still enjoy the old stuff. A good example for me would be Ricky Gervais. I still think the original version of The Office, the UK version of The Office, is one of the greatest TV shows ever made. Like, I think it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Ricky Gervais himself has turned out to be a massive asshole. He's transphobic. He's, one of these assholes that's like, stop making political statements. Nobody cares. He's become a lot of the things that he was, I thought, making fun of with his David Brent character in The Office. And now it's like, he kind of acts like that guy. He's a smarmy know-it-all who thinks he's a lot funnier than he actually is, and very small-minded and intolerant in certain ways, especially regarding trans people. And he's just the kind of shitty human being that I just can't, I don't want to watch anymore, and I can't support. but The Office is in there now. You know what I mean? The Office is in there. Um, so like I said, I don't go out of my way to like gush about it to people because of that, but it still means something to me and I can still watch it and get something out of it, even though there is that kind of shadow cast over it because of the person that Ricky Gervais turned out to be. But that's me. That may not be you. You may think I can't have anything more to do with any of this. Like even the old stuff is unwatchable to me now because they let me down. And honestly, that's up to you. And there is no wrong decision. But as for how to get over it, you know, finding someone else is always a good finding someone else is always a good strategy. Brian Baker, Steve, how do you manage your schedule to include writing, editing, and watching all those television shows and movies? How do you motivate yourself to write? I still want an AI eulogy or political win defeat speech. Keep up the great work. An AI eulogy. Um, um, I mean, at this point, it is my schedule, you know. The like for the weekly Star Trek episode reviews, you know, like I have a schedule for those. I watch the episode on Thursday morning, and then I from that point on, after the episode is done, I write my script and then I shoot it and edit it, and hopefully by you know late afternoon or early evening it's done and I can put it up. Sometimes it's a little later than that depending on how long the preceding steps take. And everything else is, I have a schedule where I write during the week. Usually I write in the morning and the afternoon. And same thing with editing. And when there's editing to do, I edit starting when I get up in the morning and work into the afternoon or the early evening, and then I take the rest of the evening off, and that's usually when I'm watching stuff, you know. So it's just, and it's become my routine, so I don't really have to consciously manage it, you know. Lately sometimes I'll watch something or at least start watching something while I'm working out. If I'm doing like a 30-minute calisthenics workout, I want to have something on TV that I can be watching while I'm doing my thing, and I'll watch it up to that point and then stop and cool down and take a shower and get dressed and come back and then watch the rest of it after that. But it depends on what I'm doing and what I'm watching. But in terms of like when there's writing or editing to do, that's as close as I get to like a standard work day. Where I get up in the morning, I get my coffee, I get to work, and I work. I take a little break for lunch, and then I work, until 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock, depending on what I'm doing and how long it's taking. And then I take the rest of the night off. Joe goes over regarding your video on box office returns. First, congratulations for squeezing in your contempt for Lower Decks. Thank you. That will soon be your channel's version of Super Easy, Barely an Inconvenience. If only it would be that lucrative. Second, while I agreed with you about everything you said, I felt you missed one valid point for fans who worry about the box office. If a film does well, the odds of a sequel increase, or even getting similar future movies. If Iron Man had failed, we might not have gotten the MCU. Thoughts? I mean, I see this point of view and I understand it, and I'm not saying that you're wrong to think that way, but my feeling is, yeah, if Iron Man had failed, then we wouldn't have gotten the MCU, but we would have gotten something else. And maybe it would have been as good as the MCU, or maybe it would have been bad, or maybe it would have been even better. You don't know. And we'll never know because that's not what happened. So I don't really get hung up on stuff like that. And also I've reached a point in my life and with my movie watching and my consumption of media in general where I don't feel entitled to more than there is. It's true. If I see a really good movie and it's the kind of movie that might get a sequel, if it's like an action movie or a superhero movie or something like that, or part of a franchise, yes, it's true. If the movie doesn't do well enough at the box office, it probably won't get a sequel. But I don't feel entitled to sequels. I feel like sequels are bonuses. Like if a movie, like I just saw the new He-Man movie, Masters of the Universe. I thought it was great. I really, really liked it. If it turns out to not do very well at the box office and they don't make another one, well, okay. Like, I bought a ticket to see one movie and I saw that movie and it was really good. It was better than I thought it would be. I'm probably going to get, the Blu-ray or what if they release it on 4K, I'll get it in that format. I'll have a copy of it here at home. I'll watch it if it comes out on a streaming service or whatever. Like, I'll have that movie that I like. I'll have it. If they make another one and that one turns out to be good, great. If they don't, okay, that's fine. I've got the one I like. They made the one I like. And actually, as I think we talked about this a little bit last time, somebody somebody mentioned something in the chat about, let's not forget that Hollywood has a history of learning the wrong lesson. Like, your version of, I hope, when you say, I hope this movie does well at the box office so that Hollywood will make more movies like this. Your version of more movies like this may be radically different from the clueless studio executive who decides what movies to make. They might have a very different idea of movies like this. So that's always going to be a factor as well. Cast Iron Chaos, given your contempt of Tolkien and your being an atheist, I would assume you've read some stuff by Michael Moorcock, in particular his novella or short novel Behold the Man, which involves a time traveler going back in time to meet Jesus and being extremely disappointed when he does. I think this novel may have even served as the basis for a laughably ridiculous Christian sci-fi movie called Assassin 33 AD, which you should definitely watch and riff for your movie podcast. I think I've heard of Assassin 33 AD, but I've never seen it. And as for your assumption about my familiarity with the work of Michael Moorcock, you could not possibly be more wrong. Not only have I never read anything by him, I have never even heard of him until your question. So I apologize for my ignorance on that. But no, I've never heard of Michael Moorcock before now. I've never read any of his work. But I am now that I am reminded of its existence, I am intrigued anew about Assassin 33 AD. John Burns, it's raining here, and the people I'm living with can feel the cold. I hope this doesn't bring on a cycle of flus. I'm feeling something big will happen starting soon, tapering off by August, as nothing newsworthy happens in August, certainly not in boring old Trump's America. Tonight, Friday, the Calgary Stampeders host the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at McMahon Stadium. It's the first home game of the new CFL season, which culminates with the 113th Grey Cup. What events can you foresee this summer? I'm going to see Supergirl when that comes out in 2 weeks? And then Spider-Man comes out in July, and The Odyssey comes out in July. I'll see both of those in the theater. Yeah. 4th of July, I'm not going to do anything, but 4th of July will occur. SummerSlam. That's what I foresee, among other things, but those are the events that just come to mind. Deminox, John Cherry could put a shower curtain in his daughter's bedroom and turn it into a hospital. Jim Varney could take a 30-second script and fill it with heart and character. I like New Trek, but I feel like with increased budgets and fewer episodes, we got too many ideas crammed into too short a time, and the little time we had wasted on big FX shots. Disco was good, but suffered from an moving, convenient coffee pacing. I love these Ernest references. Do you think lower budget plus more episodes would have helped? Not necessarily. And I feel like I made this point before too, but it bears repeating. Ultimately, the budget doesn't make that much of a difference. Ultimately, the number of episodes doesn't make that much of a difference. What matters is how good the storytellers are able to utilize the resources and the time that they have. People say, well, pick a show, pick a new show. It would have been better if they had more episodes. What makes you say that? If they, I feel like people who are old enough to remember what American television was like before the advent of the streaming era and before the shorter episode orders became the norm, look back on the way it used to be and say, boy, wasn't it better when we got 25 episodes a year instead of, between 8 and 15 episodes, maybe every couple years for the really successful shows. And to me, the problem is not the number of episodes. The problem is the same problem that it was when there were bad shows back then too. The problem is the writing, is the ability to execute, is lack of support from the studio or interference from the studio or people from the studio managing the project who don't understand it or don't believe in it or are constantly tinkering with it in ways that they're not creatively equipped to do. Like, those are the problems. And, well, just, lower the budgets and make more episodes is an attractive solution because it sounds easy. Just do that. But I don't think it's that simple. And also, I mean, there have been very good shows made under the current model. There have been very good shows made with, what we would now consider short episode orders and with, large per episode budgets. Like, it's not that it's impossible to make a good show in that framework. So the budgets and the episode orders, in my opinion, are not the problem and have never been the problem. David Colby is writing preposterous Star Trek fan fiction. An evil robot has kidnapped Kirk and put him in a stolen Enterprise, but the robot fucked up and stole the USS Columbia by accident. Steve, I have to know, do you hate do you hate fantasy, or do you just hate Lord of the Rings? Like, do you hate Conan the Barbarian? That movie's got wizards and snakes and shit. It also whips ass. Do you hate Pirates of the Caribbean? That's got magic and shit. That's fantasy. Lots of fantasy has gunpowder. Would you like elves if they could get shot by muskets? I would like it if elves would get shot by muskets. I don't think it would make me like the elves anymore, but I would enjoy watching it. Like, if you could make me a movie where it's just like an hour and a half of elves from Lord of the Rings just getting fucking blown away by muskets, I would find that at least more entertaining than the actual Lord of the Rings movies. Yeah. No, I like the Schwarzenegger Conan the Barbarian. I categorize that more as adventure fiction. It's not that I don't hate it's not just the Lord of the Rings or just Tolkien. It's high fantasy in general. It's Tolkien and all of the writers and works since then that have emulated him. And it's not just the wizards and magic and elves and all that stuff, because you quite correctly point out there are other things that I like that have those elements in it. It's the fucking pretension and high-mindedness and grandiosity of it. Like, you're writing fucking fairy tales, dude. It's not the Bible. It's not Beowulf. You're it's not the Odyssey, okay? You're not Homer, right? You're not writing great literature. You're writing a dumb story that's probably 5 times as long as it needs to be and boring as fuck to people who aren't absolutely fascinating by all the nerdy shit you thought up. Like, treat it accordingly. Most of the fantasy-esque or the high fantasy-esque stuff that I do enjoy has a very light touch, has a very light tone, is maybe a little self-deprecating or self-aware, is fun, is moves quickly, is not leaden with fucking lore and backstory and fucking made up languages and all this other fucking extraneous horseshit that people waste so much time on when they could be telling a story about characters that the audience can care about. It's all of that I have a problem with and that I find off-putting. But no, I have no problem with Conan. I've only ever seen the first Pirates of the Caribbean, so I can't speak to anything other than that, but I did enjoy that. And I mean, I saw, I love He-Man, Masters of the Universe. There's a lot of fantasy elements in that, but again, it's He-Man. It's dumb. Like, it's dumb. It's silly. It's goofy. You're not meant to take it all that seriously. And therefore I find it a lot more approachable than something like Lord of the Rings, which just demands that you take it seriously, which is utterly ridiculous to me. Wolfram and Hart. So speaking of He-Man and Masters of the Universe, Wolfram and Hart says, I never really cared about He-Man, but the new Masters of the Universe movie looks good and done by Travis Knight, who shined up the Transformers turd factory to produce the enjoyable Bumblebee. As related, here's a question. The annoying 1980s sidekicks are rounded up and one must be horribly sacrificed so that Earth and humanity may live. Who do you, Steve Shives, pick? Choices, no particular order: Snarf of Thundercats, Orko of He-Man, Slimer of the Real Ghostbusters, Scrappy Doo of Scooby-Doo. It was very smart of you to put Scrappy-Doo at the end of the list, because if you had put Scrappy-Doo at the beginning of the list, I would have stopped reading at that point and said Scrappy-Doo, because this is not even a choice. And it honestly, the fate of Earth and humanity doesn't even need to be on the line. I think Scrappy-Doo should be put into a burlap sack and held under the water. I'm not a Scrappy-Doo fan at all. So Scrappy-Doo. I have nothing in. I positively like Orko. I like Orko. I have nothing at all against Snarf or Slimer. I didn't really watch that much Thundercats. I did watch Real Ghostbusters fairly religiously when it was on. Had no huge problem with Slimer. Slimer wasn't like my favorite part of the show, but I had no problems with Slimer. Had no problems with Orko at all. I liked Orko. Scrappy-Doo should die. Scrappy-Doo should be killed. Just in general. And if it saves humanity, so much the better. The Brain. What do you think has a greater impact on society? The stories that tell us who we should be, or the stories that tell us who we already are? What a great question. I think if the stories that tell us who we already are told well enough, then they also tell us who we should be. It should, like that, embedded in the message of such a story is at least a concept, at least an arrow pointing in the direction of who we should be, because that's the point of telling that story, so yeah, I mean, stories that tell us who we should be are important. Sometimes those can be too heavy-handed and didactic, and people might not be receptive to the message. Whereas if you tell them the story in a way that it reveals something about who we are, and it does it in a way that makes people think, oh yeah, maybe we shouldn't be this way, or maybe we should have some qualms about this, that can sometimes be more effective than just doing it, the Twilight Zone way and saying we should be something else. Although the Twilight Zone did the second thing as well. There are a lot of Twilight Zone episodes where it's very much about look how broken and fucked up, humanity is. And it doesn't necessarily have an explicit prescription for here's what we should do instead, but it's in the idea of we should be something else is embedded in there. So I think I would say the second one has a greater impact, but it also always depends on the story itself. Andy Lawler will not be performing at the Freedom 250 concert, and I think that was probably the last straw that encouraged Trump to just say, "Fuck it, we're not doing it. I'm just gonna give a speech instead." Which, boy. Hey Steve, I saw a great meme for Pride Month. Picture of Pride flag. I did a little work for this. There's your Pride flag, babies. Happy Pride Month, everybody. Anyway, Andy says, picture of Pride flag. Think of me as the pole. I'm not part of the flag, but I'm straight and I will support you. Well, that's a nice thought. On behalf of my asexual, aromantic daughter, my trans daughter, and the rest of our family, happy Pride to all, and happy Juneteenth. Lots to celebrate this month. Now, if we could just read the big, beautiful obituary. Thanks and have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you, Andy, and my best to the entire family. And those your well wishes for all of those very important occasions are appreciated. Thank you very much. An enemy spy who is concerned that the American left is too comfortable with losing all the time. Boy, you said a mouthful there. I get so frustrated with online leftists who seem so unwilling to try for any kind of incremental victories if it won't result in getting everything we want in one go. Like they're just hoping the clouds will part and the perfect candidate will descend in a beam of light from the heavens. I liken them to a baseball team that won't even swing the bat until the bases are full. Feels like they'd really get to say, I told you so. They'd rather get to say, I told you so, than actually affect any change sometimes. I agree with you 100%. That is one of my biggest frustrations with the left as well. The not just the aversion or the lack of patience for incremental change, but trying to make some kind of moral argument that like we should be morally opposed to incremental change, as though, you know, it's better to let everybody starve than to feed as many people as we can. And that's, I mean, that's, you know, like, well, if we can't feed everybody, we're not feeding anybody. That I don't understand that. I don't understand that philosophy. You know, if we can't get 100% of what we want, then 50% of what we want is unacceptable. I mean, anything's better than zero, right? I know we've had this conversation before. My late and very, very missed friend Joe Stevenson, Serious Mind, would say this a lot as well. Like, you fight for as much as you can possibly get. Like, aim for 100% of what you want. But when the fight is over, if you didn't get the 100%, but you got 40% of what you were fighting for, and at that point, you know, that's as much as you're going to get this time, then take it. Don't be like, well, I'm not, then we'll just take zero. Fuck this. Like, no, take the 40%. And then the next time this fight comes around, that's where you start from. You're not starting at zero anymore. Your zero now is 40% better than your last zero. And that's how it should work. But this mentality, this all or nothing mentality, and yeah, I do think a lot of it is, you know, whether they intentionally do it like this, whether they are aware of it or not, I do think a lot of it is performative for people that, you know, are predominantly online. A lot of it is performative, and a lot of it is, yeah, they like feeling smarter than other people. They like, it's the intellectual purity of it. Well, I'm better than those people. Look at them voting for those, you know, too far to the center Democrats. Like, I would never sully myself by voting for one of them. And then they, you know, a Republican gets elected instead, and shit gets 10 times worse. So thanks a lot. Congratulations. Well done. But no, I know I agree with everything you're saying, and I share those exact same frustrations and concerns. Some random geek who says it is Pride Month, mutter fluffers. You know, you can swear. I'm feeling very defeated, Steve. I try to tell people that my friends like Joanna Roberts only get $1,200 a month from her SSDI, and it isn't enough for all her expenses of rent, bills, pills, and food for her and her trans NB son. She has often gone without eating for days, or only eats one meal a day. But yet my friends like Joanna, Phoenix, Joey, Naz, and LQ are not suffering because of capitalism. They just want people to support them. Oh, that's what people are saying. Here's another one from Geek, who is, of course, a patron and a member and gets the privilege of asking 2 questions if so desired. Some random Geek is announcing that Pride Month is canceled. It is Queer Wrath Month instead. If my friends were actually disabled, they would qualify for disability, low-income housing, and EBT. So this right-wing liberal isn't victim blaming, but entitlement shaming. I guess I should just let my friends fucking starve then. No one will believe my friends, and those who do and are willing to give money to my friends, they are poor as shit. Capitalism. If a disabled can't get on benefits, they're not trying hard enough. Should I even bother telling folks about charitylinks.page? Well, not people like that, but people like that aren't going to listen anyway. There's no argument to get through to people like that. You know, because look at how, and I'm assuming it's this, we'll throw people into kind of a broad category, but I'm assuming the person you're referring to who has made this argument would also be the kind of person that would be incredibly judgmental about what people buy with an EBT card, you know, because like the truth is you can't win. If you say, oh, I didn't qualify for benefits, or I don't get benefits, they'll say, well, then obviously you don't deserve them, because if you needed them, then you would have qualified and they would have given them to you. But then if you do qualify and you buy like too nice of a cut of meat with your EBT card, then it's like, oh, look at this. This is ridiculous. Look at him buying like, look at him buying steak and lobster with an EBT card. This is not like, there's no way you can win. There's no way with a person with that mentality. There is no, they act as though they want people to be poor the right way. But even for them, there is no such thing as being poor the right way. You know, and I mean, that whole concept is ridiculous for a start, but even they don't believe it. There is no such thing as being poor in the right way. So fuck those people. Fuck those people. They're never going to pay any attention to charitylinks.page or to any other charity, or to any other thing that helps people in need. They don't care about the need. They don't care about the need. They just care about being able to wag their finger at people, And it's probably reassuring to them to have this worldview that tells them that all the people who suffer deserve it. It's okay. It's not because of any kind of injustice or any kind of unfairness that is part of society that maybe we should do something to correct. Nope. If you're poor or you're disabled and you're having a hard time, well, that's your fault. You have done something wrong and brought it on yourself, and therefore you deserve it. And there's nothing I can do about it, and there's nothing you should expect me to do about it. So let's just change the subject, right? That's, I'm sure it must be very reassuring to be able to look at the world that way. None your business. Countries really do run into big problems when they become empires. So what's the attraction for democracies like yours? Empire. An empire is a large-scale political entity or sovereign state that exercises supreme authority and control over multiple territories, nations, or diverse ethnic groups. It is typically headed by a single central power, such as an emperor, monarch, or oligarchy, and is often formed through conquest or colonization. Thank you for the definition. I mean, for the common people, there really isn't much of an attraction, or there shouldn't be. But for the leaders and for the extremely wealthy who stand to benefit and profit from it, then there is very much an attraction. Being able to control much larger populations and profit from much larger populations and much larger collections of resources. So yeah, the people who tend to the empires and who are kind of responsible for driving the policies that lead to empires, they see a very big upside to it. It's just that upside comes at the expense of everyone else. The grumpy monkey with a question that is kind of rhetorical, but kind of isn't. 'Tis said that Trump's success is due in part to his cult of personality. What I want to know is what personality? He's a pig, ignorant oaf, and a blatant liar. He's a failed businessman, a bully, and a convicted thief and sexual abuser. He's a disgrace to his office, and he talks like a petulant mafia don. The Iran war has shown he's the worst type of despot, a bungling despot. Are so many people really that gullible as to believe that this guy has their back? That up is down and black is white because he says so? I mean, it's a little bit like the phenomenon that you see with cults, just blown up to a national scale. And again, I mean, I hate to keep repeating myself, but I know I've said this before. I don't know of any cult leader that I have ever seen or heard of who I got it. I don't know of any cult leader that I looked at and said, yeah, you know what? I understand why people follow him or her, but it's usually him, but every once in a while it's her. I've never understood it. I have never thought, yeah, you know what? I can see why they're attracted to this guy. He's very smart. He's very charismatic. The things he says make a lot of sense. It's always the exact opposite. It's always, what is the deal? Why this guy? What about him could possibly be appealing to people or even interesting to people? Because that's the thing about Trump, and that's the thing about every other cult leader that I've ever heard of. It's not just that they're all of the things that you just described Trump as being. It's also, and this is true of Trump as well, they're fucking boring. They're just boring, tedious people who prattle on and on and on about horseshit that shouldn't mean anything to anybody other than them. Like, look at L. Ron Hubbard. What a fucking tedious human being. An absolute, just, Jesus Christ, how could you stay awake for 5 minutes once he opened his mouth? Just so fucking boring. But there's a group of people who were absolutely convinced that he was like the great prophet of the age. I don't get it. I don't get it. And with Trump, it's the same thing. It's on a much larger scale. So I'm right there with you. I do not understand. I know that it's a fact and I witness it all the time and I must accept that it's true, that it happens. But do I get it? Absolutely not. I do not understand it. Agent Meister, who would smoke cigarettes all day, every day if they weren't so addictive. Peldor Joy, Steve. You've let slip once or twice your disdain over Voyager resetting the effects of Year of Hell, but which, in your opinion, is the more egregious crime? The Voyager reset or the original Transformers cartoon bringing back Optimus Prime, thus sidelining Rodimus, who I understand was one of your favorites? In fairness, Rodimus did return in the Japanese cartoon, but that wasn't much good to Western audiences at the time. And regarding 80s cartoons, looking forward to the new He-Man. Yes, I am looking forward to the new He-Man. I'll probably see it again at some point soonish, as soon as I get a chance to. Yeah, I really liked it. I really liked it. Thank you for asking. Um, I think the Voyager reset is worse because at least when they brought Optimus back, they brought him back by bringing him back like within the context of the story. Like the characters remembered that he had died and then he came back. Whereas the Year of Hell reset was literally a reset button. Like the characters didn't even know that anything had happened. And that was really what annoyed me about it, to the point that I stopped watching the show after that. It wasn't just that they rewound the events of Year of Hell so that it had never happened. It's that they did it in such a way that none of the characters who lived through it even remembered it. Like the entire story was pointless, not just to us in the audience, but to the characters who experienced it. Like it erased it for them as well as for the show going forward. It was so completely pointless. And it was a two-parter. They said, let's do a two-part episode where at the end of it, not only will the events that take place in it not matter for the show going forward, but the characters who experience the events won't even remember it. It won't even matter to them. Why are we doing it? Why are we doing it? So yeah, no, Year of Hell in that case is a much more egregious crime against writing. Yeah. Jan, California primary done. We'll see how it went. Question: do you have any more Starfleet jobs planned? Don't expect details, but love the series so much, and your creativity is so impressive. My personal fave is Chef, but I also agree the lawyer is excellent. The videos are all great, often very moving, usually hysterical, and super well done. Thanks and take care. Absolutely. I have a doc where I have a list of future jobs for Starfleet jobs videos. I don't know if I have settled on what the next one will be, although just today I had an idea for another one that I need to add to the doc. I haven't added it yet, but I had an idea for another one that I thought might be something. I'll have to flesh it out and see if it is worth actually trying to do. But yes, I do have plans for many more Starfleet jobs videos. Yes, and thank you very much for enjoying them and for telling me that you enjoy them. I think that's really nice. I like them too. They're a lot of fun. Zulu Romeo. Since about 2001, I've really loved song mashups where one or more similar or even totally different songs are mixed together to form a new composition, often with clever, funny, or even emotionally moving results. Are you into mashups, and which ones do you like? If you're new to them, DJ Earworm and Go Home Productions are great places to start. Not really. It's never really been a point of interest for me. I know I've heard one or two of them, but I've never reacted more than just like, oh, that's cool. You know, like if they mix like multiple songs together and they line up just perfectly and they complement each other, I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. But then, I listen to it and I'm like, okay, that was nice. And then it's not like a thing that has hooked me, as it has attracted your ongoing interest. But I think it's great that it's a thing that you enjoy. But yeah, it's never been like something that I'm particularly, you know, uh, drawn to. Endarth, hey Captain, preemptive apologies if someone has asked this before. Before, in this case, I assume is years before I was a member. Did Stuffy get his name because he's a stuffed animal and you speak like you have a stuffy nose? Or you just thought a stuffed animal speaking like it has a stuffy nose was stuffy? Either way, the wordplay gave me a chuckle. So, I did not actually name Stuffy. When I found Stuffy in the antique store that I purchased him from, that I adopted him from, he had a tag that said, "My name is Stuffy." So after I got him, I just didn't change his name. To me, his name was Stuffy, so I called him that. And when Stuffy, when I, all I can say is that's the voice that came out in terms of like Stuffy's voice, how Stuffy sounds. I didn't think about it. I didn't plan anything. There was no intention. That's just the voice that came out. So I'm sure that there was some, you know, subconscious idea of, well, his name is Stuffy, he should have a voice that sounds a little, stuffy, a little, like he has some like a clogged sinus or something. I'm sure there was something like that going on, but I don't recall ever having any intention of saying, oh, Stuffy, he should sound like this. That's just how he sounded when he started talking. So but yeah, no, and I believe he was named Stuffy because he was a stuffed animal. But no, but I did not give him his name. The Noam Chomsky. All right, so not to be cheeky, but I just wanted to know if your disdain for dice extended beyond tabletop role playing games. I mean, do you refuse to play board games or gamble as well? Or is there just something about cubes with dots on them that incenses you? I don't gamble because gambling is dumb. It's one of the dumbest things anybody could ever do. So I don't gamble on anything, whether it's involving dice or not. I just think gambling is one of the most asinine and silly things anybody could ever do for any reason. So I don't gamble for that reason, not because I have anything against dice. And but no, and no, there are certain board games that I enjoy a great deal. Some of them involve dice, some of them don't. Um, but I mean, you know, it's not. No, to answer your question, it's the role playing games thing, and it's the way dice are used, and it's the fact that you are introducing you are. It's just what turns me off about it. I think is the introduction of like technical elements and like numbers and statistics and gamification into story. I'm not a big fan of gamification of storytelling, just in general. I really don't like that. I'm sort of philosophically opposed to that. There's something very inorganic about it in my mind, and I'm not a fan of that in general, and I am certainly not attracted to the idea of participating in it. It just doesn't seem like remotely fun to me. So it's the problem with dice and role playing games is mostly the role playing game part, not the dice part. I have nothing like in principle against dice. But yeah. Don Quixote. Hi, Steve. Not really a question. Tuesday was my 60th birthday. Happy birthday. And I had an interesting text interaction. I had reposted Have a Wonderful Pride Month, a Have a Wonderful Pride Month pic on Facebook. A friend I grew up with sent me a DM asking if I was a supporter or part of the community. I said just a supporter. He replied okay and wondered if I was offended by asking. I told him no, not at all. If a guy can't be civil and just give a simple no, but you be you, then he must be uncertain of his own masculinity. And that was the end of it. Okay. I mean, I feel like that you handled that well. I feel, yeah. I guess people are sensitive. People they assume that you were more sensitive to it than you are. They're like, I hope you're not offended by me asking. But like if you really are an ally, if you really are a supporter of the queer community, then of course you shouldn't be offended by somebody asking if you might possibly be a member of the community as opposed to just an outsider who supports them. You shouldn't be like being someone assuming that you're gay or queer in any respect is not an insult, and it shouldn't be taken as one. And clearly you didn't take it as one, So I think, yeah, but I think some of it is just that insecurity and that assumption that a lot of people, even if they're outwardly supportive of, equality and humane treatment for LGBTQ people, that there is still that assumption of that there's something insulting about being assumed to be a part of the community. And here's another one from Don Quixote. Hi, Steve. Just one more Jerry O'Connell question. Did you ever see the 1996 movie Joe's Apartment? It was MTV's first film production. Recently watched it, and unless you have serious bug phobia, it's pretty funny. Also made me think of the bug scene in Temple of Doom, so I watched that too. I think I saw Joe's Apartment a long time ago. I think I've only seen it once, and it's been a very long time, so I don't remember a whole lot about it. I remember not hating it. I think I thought it was all right. Yeah, and I don't have a bug phobia when it comes to movies. I'm not a huge fan of unexpectedly encountering a bug in real life. That's not my favorite thing. but in movies like that Temple of Doom scene that everybody talks about, where they have to like reach, she has to reach through the thing and there's bugs. Like that doesn't bother me at all. But if I had to do that in real life, yeah, we might have a problem. We might all die. If it was down to me reaching my hand in for something, I think we're all gonna die, guys. I'm not doing that. Kara the Talking Nerd, I have been reading some of the later Legends of the Dark Knight comics. Apart from Prey and Venom, are there any other stories that stick with you? Um, I can't really. I don't. I stopped reading Batman comics regularly in the late 90s, and I don't really remember a lot of the latter Legends of the Dark Knight stories, and I didn't keep up with it after that, so I'm not as familiar with it as I am from like the first 6 or 7 years of the title. And really, the ones that I remember the most strongly are the ones that I've been doing Best Batman Evers about, which are the first three, or the first four if you count Venom, because Venom comes right after Prey. Um, I mean, obviously, I think Gothic is my favorite. Gothic is one of my favorite Batman stories, period, not just my favorite Legends of the Dark Knight story arc. Um, but yeah, I can't think of any right now from later on in the run that jump out at me. It's something that I should go back and refamiliarize myself with, and definitely go back and find, the issues that I never actually read the first time through. And here's another one from Kara. And on the note of the last question, what about Batman comics and stories with a definite supernatural theme? Or do you think this is just normal for Gotham? Well, it's normal. Here's the thing: it's normal for Gotham if that's the circumstances of that story. I am not naturally drawn to supernatural Batman stories. Like I tend to prefer the sort of detective side of Batman, or like the weird creature of the night side of Batman, but where it doesn't tip over into the supernatural. Like it's all, nothing happens that couldn't possibly happen. It's very unlikely and very outlandish and very sort of, you know, uh, pulpy, and the kind of thing that almost certainly wouldn't happen, but is not prevented from happening by like the laws of physics, right? Um, it doesn't cross over into science fiction or fantasy. Uh, but the right story told by the right storytellers, I, I I have no objection to supernatural Batman stuff at all. I mean, Gothic is a perfect example. Gothic ends with the villain, who is a 300-year-old man, being dragged to hell by Satan. That's pretty supernatural. And it's brilliant. Like, it's brilliant. Is it the kind of Batman story I would ever want to write myself? No. But it's brilliant. And I can't take that away from it, nor does any part of me want to. Like, so it really depends on the story. I'm open to supernatural Batman. It's not what I'm naturally inclined toward, but I'm very open to it. I'm open to pretty much anything if it's done well. Debbie, hi Steve. I'm retired due to a heart attack 5 years ago, and my husband 2 years ago retired. So we dropped our private insurance for Medicare. It was great with President Biden, not with Trump. I go once a year for heart testing because I have 2 heart stents. This year, they cut back 3 of the testings because of Trump cutting a lot of Medicare. But it scares me. These tests I need are not covered because of Trump's incompetence. This is wrong. Is Trump even human? Um, First of all, I'm really sorry to hear that, and I hope that you can navigate this successfully, and that you're going to be okay. Um, Here's the thing: Trump is human. Trump is human. He's just not a very good one. I mean, I understand people, when people say he's not even human, or he doesn't have a soul, or he's not, you know what I mean? Like, they're making a point, and it's a good point, about his cruelty and his indifference to the suffering of people that he doesn't think about or care about. But I feel like we need to be careful about separating him and people like him from the rest of humanity, because that denies that human beings are capable of some really terrible things, you know? And it's fine to talk about that in figurative language and say, oh my God, Trump, he's not even human, as long as we understand that that's what we're doing. Like, because he's not an alien. Donald Trump and the Republican Party, the MAGA movement, they did not occupy this country from somewhere else. They're from here. They're of us. We are part of it. Even though we are opposed to them and we're fighting them and trying to stop them from, making things even worse than they already have. Like they come from us. And to that extent, we are responsible for them. And we are also responsible for fixing the things that they have done. And for preventing them or other groups like them in the future from rising up to do something like this again. But no, unfortunately, he is human. And unfortunately, humans have the capacity to do the kinds of things Trump has been doing. And it's unfortunate, but it's something that we should never lose sight of. Simon Moody, with things as bad as they are, both in the US and with many other world leaders and governments, if you gained powers that could be used to really alter things in a covert way, shape-shifting or mental control would be examples, would you use it or would you respect free will? I can think of one way I might use it that would that would contravene free will. But generally speaking, I don't think I would want to do that because I think I've made this point in answers to previous questions. If you take it upon yourself to change the direction of society, like summarily, then you're just doing a different version of what people like Donald Trump want to do, and you're assuming that, well, I'll just make things the way I think they should be and they'll be better. And I mean, in the case of where if the alternative is Trump, I mean, you're probably right. The way you want things to be will be better. But like once you cross that bridge, it may be hard to stop doing that. You know what I mean? Like Superman might decide, okay, you know what? Trump is terrible. I can't let this go on. I'm going to take him. And Superman grabs Trump and just throws him into the sun. Yay! Superman saved us. But now Superman has also established that precedent. So how long before another president fucks up? Maybe not as bad as Trump, but still in a way that seems pretty unacceptable. And one of two things could happen. Either Superman himself could be like, should I toss this one into the sun too? Or some of the people might be like, Superman, where you at? Toss this guy into the sun. You toss the last guy into the sun. And then I just, in the long run, that's not the solution. The solution has to come from within. The solution has to come from the people, from us. And that's a hell of a lot more difficult to achieve, but it's also a lot more sustainable and a lot more just than, having someone with special abilities come in and say, I'll fix it. So I probably couldn't resist in one or two circumstances, but I would hope that I would not take it upon myself to really start altering things, because who is to say that I am qualified to decide how things should be? Air One Fire's non-political question. Hi, Steve. Do you know that I've been on a diet since March 2nd, 2 days shorter than Trump's latest stupid, reckless, fascist war of choice designed to cause chaos to steal more elections for right-wing extremists worldwide? Sometimes more and sometimes less disciplined, and a consistent, albeit short, morning routine, including education and job searching since May 4th. It's gotten quite easy. Small changes are the answer. Thanks for the help you gave me years ago. I have the power. Best wishes. Well, best wishes to you, my friend. Congratulations. I'm very happy to hear that. Yes. I was talking about this with Dana on the phone the other day. We were talking about my workout routine. And I said, and I'm sure I've heard this from someone else. I didn't make it up, but the best workout is the one that you will do. And I think an important part of that, as it is with diet and with any other thing that is going to represent a change in your routine or a change in your life, don't demand too much of yourself all at once. Small changes, incrementalism, if you will. Add this to your routine, or establish this, or start doing this and get used to it. And then add this, or up it a little bit, cut your portion size. Just don't cut it in half right away. Just cut it a little bit. And then once you get used to that, if you want to, and you feel like you need to, well, then cut it a little more, maybe skip a meal, or exercise a little more. If you just, do some push-ups in the morning, see how you feel. Get into a routine. And maybe if you do that for a while, do some more push-ups or add something else. Start planking or add sit-ups or get a chin-up bar and start working on that. Or, but little by little. And it sounds like you're doing that. And that's fantastic. I'm so proud of you and I'm so happy for you. That's great. And thank you for sharing that. Isaiah, have you ever heard the audio recordings of voices from the past? I've heard the voices of former enslaved Africans and it made my skin crawl. Had I been born back then, I could have been one. A few Civil War vets lived up until the 1950s. I've also heard audio recordings of people who survived both the sinking of the Lusitania and Titanic. History is much more different once you hear it from those who were actually there, like ghosts from the past, but these are real. Yeah, I have actually one of the more haunting audio recordings in Ken Burns' Civil War documentary. And actually, Isaiah, you asked earlier in the chat, can I think of a good Civil War movie? Ken Burns' Civil War. It's great. It's 11 hours, but it's the best Civil War movie ever made. But there's an audio recording of a man who, I guess the recording was made in the 1910s or 1920s, something like that, when he was an old man. But he had been a slave. And he survived the Civil War and was freed. And now as an old man, he was being asked about his experience, and it was amazing, and yeah, kind of haunting because I think I remember him saying, he said, if I ever thought that all of that was ever going to come back, meaning slavery, if I ever thought that slavery was going to come back, he said, I'd probably take a gun and end it all because I don't think I could go back to that because you're nothing but a dog. And that's always stuck with me. And it's like, that's not an actor reading that. Like that's the actual human being who lived it, his recorded voice. And there is something just incredibly compelling about that. Yeah, for sure. Jim P. Hi, Steve. I can't really think of a question with how much everything is sucking right now, but I do get to play test college football this weekend. So at least that's something. Have a great show and weekend yourself. Thank you, Jim, very much. I appreciate the thought. Have fun play testing college football this weekend. JDC just spent another 10 days in the hospital. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Hey, Steve, hope you're doing well. Do you enjoy any children's media? I thought the 2017 DuckTales reboot was tremendous, especially the first 2 seasons. Thanks. I mean, the only one that comes to mind immediately is Star Trek Prodigy, because that was aimed at a young audience. Maybe that's cheating a little because yes, it was aimed at a young audience, but also it was Star Trek, and I've been a Star Trek fan since I was a little kid, so of course I was gonna watch it. But no, as a rule, I don't seek out children's media just because I don't have kids of my own. I never have. I've never been like a teacher. Like there's no reason for me to be especially interested in children's media. I never watched the DuckTales reboot. I heard that it was good. I bet if I did watch it, I would probably enjoy it, but I just never felt drawn to it. But I'm glad that you thought it was great. But no, generally, the only kids media that I still am interested in is just stuff that I was interested in when I was a kid. Like I can still sit down and watch the hell out of an episode of Mr. Rogers. Like for real, I can watch Mr. Rogers and still enjoy it the same as I enjoyed it when I was 6 years old. That's always going to be compelling to me. And of course, I mentioned a few times already because of the movie. He-Man. I watched some episodes of the He-Man cartoon the other day, and I enjoy them for very different reasons now than I did when I was a little kid watching them. But I still enjoy them a great deal. But yeah, other than stuff like that, no, I don't really go out of my way to watch children's media. Dana. Hi, Steve. Happy Friday. By the time you read this on the live stream, barring catastrophe, I will be at the theater and getting into costume for opening night. So sorry I'll miss the stream, but I've had a lovely time with this play. Fingers crossed and such. Tell everyone I said hello and that I hope to see them in the chat on Wednesday. And then there's a purple heart, which means that Dana has been wounded in combat. So my condolences for that, but thank you for your service. Yeah, and hopefully the play goes well. Break a leg, Dana. I think I told you that in person already, and you're probably not watching this, but just in case, break a leg. Have a great show. And she will be back on Wednesday for our regularly scheduled watch along stream, or we will watch the second half of the Poirot adventure that we started 2 weeks ago. And then we took this week off because Dana had tech week responsibilities, so we couldn't do a Wednesday stream this week, but we will be back next week. With it, it's the mystery of the blue train is the Poirot that we're in the middle of. But yes, so Dana will be back with everybody on Wednesday. Mac, who is a broken record. Greetings, Steve. I hope you're well. I'm going to use my space to remind everyone that the Islamic Republic massacred 40,000 protesters. With the 90-day government-imposed internet blackout, reliable figures are hard to come by, but rights groups say minimum low 10K, likely much more, on January 8 and 9, and continue to execute protesters by hanging them from cranes in public, some as young as 16, with death sentences set for 13-year-olds. Sometimes the villains are not just the West. That is a very important message for everybody, but especially for anyone who finds themselves sympathizing with the regime. Obviously, we should all be sympathizing, and we should all have undying love and support for the Iranian people who are suffering under the regime. But we should have no misgivings or no illusions about what the government of Iran is. And it should be completely unacceptable to all of us. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to support any given policy or whatever, but the idea that anybody would ever be rooting for the Islamic Republic of Iran, even if the enemy is the United States, which is a good enemy, believe me. There's all kinds of reasons to not want to root against the United States. But no, the Islamic Republic is that as the United States, especially under Donald Trump, versus the Islamic Republic of Iran, is what in professional wrestling parlance is called a heel program. There is no babyface. There is nobody to root for in that situation. It's the common people that are the sympathetic ones in that case, not either one of those two regimes. Russell, hey Steve, first off, R.I.P. James Handy. I best know his work as Captain Haverhill on NYPD Blue. Such a talented actor. I certainly hated his character. I also seen in The Practice and in Quantum Leap, Temptation Eyes. Great episode, in my opinion. So my question is, what was your favorite performance of his? And what scene from NYPD Blue did you really like? I must regretfully tell you, I don't remember him. When I saw the news that he had died, and he died in a horribly tragic way. He was killed by, I believe it was his girlfriend's son, who apparently was having some kind of a mental health episode. Just a tragic circumstance and just an awful thing to happen. But when I looked at his filmography and saw things that he had done, I know he has been in shows like you mentioned, Quantum Leap and NYPD Blue. He's been in shows that I've seen. I know I've seen his work, but nothing jumps out at me. So I with all due respect to the man and his work, which I don't mean to disparage at all, but just, the fault is mine. But I can't tell you what my favorite performance of his, because I honestly don't remember any. Damian Williams, Steve, do you find the TNG episode Firstborn as retroactively funny as I do, where Worf indignantly argues with future Alexander that he knows best how to raise him and then immediately abandons Alexander after the season is over? DS9 made that episode a dark comedy. Yeah, to me, it just reinforces what a zero Alexander is. It makes me love Worf even more. I'm like, good for you, Worf, for once again detaching yourself from your loser anchor of a kid. Good for you for apparently immediately dumping him back on Earth with the grandparents. Like, as soon as season 7 of TNG was over, Worf was like, get the fuck out. Back to Earth, loser. And good for him. I've said before, I'm 100% on Worf's side. Because Alexander was a zero. Which I think is borne out in Deep Space Nine when he comes back and is, guess what, an absolute zero. To answer your question, yes, it is hilarious. It is hilarious. Anytime I think about what a terrible father Worf was, it fills my heart with joy. And here's Russell's member question. Hey, Steve, we also lost Anthony Head, best known as Giles on Buffy. What was some of your favorite Giles moments? I love the scene where he first opens the magic shop, or when he plays opposite Wesley's character in season 3. But again, what are some of your favorite moments? Also, he had a small role in NYPD Blue where he played a stage actor, which is what he did for real. Love that episode. With him in it, see you shortly. I don't remember him. My favorite Giles moment is at the end of season 5 when he kills Ben. For those of you who don't remember or haven't seen the show, the big bad of season 5 was a goddess named Glory, who, in order to exist in our dimension, had to attach herself to a human body, and so she kind of possessed the body of this human guy named Ben. And every once in a while, Ben would sort of transform into Glory, like Glory would take over Ben's body, and she would become herself. But then eventually, she would have to go back in, like she'd have to Hulk in, you know. And while she was inside and Ben was out, she was vulnerable. So that's how Glory gets defeated at the end. As Buffy beats her up and she withdraws back into Ben, and Ben is lying there as a vulnerable human. And Giles just walks up and clamps his hand over his mouth and fucking kills him right there. Just cold-blooded as you please. Just fucking straight up fucking murders him to prevent Glory from returning. Because once the human body that Glory is imprisoned in or attached to dies, then Glory can't come back. So Giles does what needs to be done. He just kneels over Ben, who is prostrate on the ground and unable to, because he's also carrying the injuries from the fight with Buffy. And Giles is just like, well, only one thing to do here. Boom. And he kills him. And it's it's kind of a cold-blooded, shocking moment, but it tells you something about that character. Like, Giles, the funny British guy, the warm, the sort of the paternal figure of the group, the guy that everybody comes to for advice, and he's kind of stuffy and kind of funny, and also he will straight up fucking kill somebody if he thinks that's what needs to happen. He's a great character, and Anthony Stewart Head was just phenomenal playing him. And yeah, I mean, it's a terrible loss. I was very, very sad to hear that. And Caitlin, there's 3 left. There were some late submitters. There are 3 left. Caitlin L., who saw the notification on Monday, said, "Oh, I should submit that question," then forgot. It was a while ago now because I kept replacing this question with something else. But you mentioned you never tried any drugs other than alcohol. Was that a conscious choice, or was it just never available to you, e.g. in college? Come to think of it, the only time I've seen you drink was in the Nemesis review, which was ages ago now. Are you teetotal? No judgment either way, of course. You just always struck me as the kind of writer who tried pot once and had it not do anything for him. It was a conscious choice. Well, it was a conscious choice influenced by complete lack of interest. I have never been around a person who was using drugs where I thought, I want to try that. I've never known a single person in my life who was more fun to be around or more interesting if they were high. And I have never felt like, and I know some people say like, oh, this movie's really good if you watch it while you're high. To me, that's just a bad movie. Like if I have to enter an altered state in order to enjoy the movie, then it's not a good movie. Then the filmmakers didn't do their job, right? You shouldn't have to be in an altered state to enjoy a movie. That's a bad movie. But no, I've just never been remotely interested in it. So it's mostly that. I mean, I've had opportunities. Actually, when I was involved with the independent film company that I worked with, that I was a writer and occasional performer for many moons ago, I think I was the only regular member of that group who was not a pot smoker, and like a regular heavy pot smoker. Like I was the only one. And I was never, they were very cool about it. Nobody tried to pressure me. Nobody, treated me like I wasn't part of the group because I didn't smoke up with him or anything. It was, I've never experienced that either. I've never experienced like drug users who were like assholes about it. They were like, why aren't you doing it? Like I've never had that either. Like I don't, if that's your thing, fucking do your thing. It's not my thing. Right. And as for the drinking, that's kind of the same thing. Like, yes, I have drunk alcohol many times before in my life. I've never been like a habitual drinker or a very heavy drinker. I have gotten super fucking drunk a time or two in my life. But I think eventually it just got to a point where I was like, I just don't need to do this. You know, I don't particularly enjoy it. It's usually just a social thing. If you're hanging out with somebody and say, "Hey, you want a beer?" Sure, okay. Um, and eventually I got to a point where I was just like, I just don't need to do this. Now I'm not. I'm teetotal, like practically speaking. I haven't made any kind of moral pledge. Like I'm not saying like if I'm not there may come a day where I'm over at my dad's house and he says, "Hey, you want to have a beer?" And I'll say, "Yeah." Like that may happen. I'm not completely writing it off, but for my own, like I have no alcohol in the house. I haven't had alcohol in the house. I've never had alcohol in this house since I've lived here. And even before when my wife and I were still together, I think it was many years since we had alcohol in that house. You know, I'm just not. It just doesn't interest me. It just doesn't appeal to me. So MW Ridge turns 42 this weekend and is so old they almost forgot to submit a question. How dare you say that to a 46-year-old man? How dare you? Hey, Steve, any thoughts on that shitbag Indiana mayor who ignored 20,000 constituents who were against a data center and said they were probably just poor renters in shitty houses? Unrelated, how do you feel about the historical practice of tarring and feathering? I mean, I think shitbag says it pretty well. I think you got that covered. That's a good way to describe that mayor. Um, and yes, on this completely unrelated question, I would say I think the historical practice of tarring and feathering is just unspeakably brutal. Like it's just one of the worst punishments imaginable. Just excruciating. I can't imagine how agonizing that must be. But you know what? Maybe there are certain instances where it's justified. Theoretically. And last question from Captain, who says, "Hey, Steve, I'm excited about your next retro review, Cause and Effect. I don't know if you made this joke, but I just have to mention, this one has always had something hilarious that stuck out to me. Jordy says multiple times, at first I thought the catwalk was spinning. Turns out it was me. Really, Jordy? Chief engineer, lieutenant commander, been around the universe a couple times. Your first instinct is that the catwalk was spinning? Anyway, that's it. Don't stop, be Steven. Thank you very much, my friend. I think you're giving poor Jordy too hard of a time here. He's using figurative language to make his point. He's trying to describe the experience of the vertigo that he went through. And also, let's not forget, I mean, he does work on the Enterprise, and that ship does it spins around sometimes. Like they've some fucked up stuff has happened on that ship. So it's possible the catwalk may have spun at some point in the past. But no, let's just leave Jordy. Jordy's having a tough day, okay? Just leave Jordy alone. But also, yeah, no, I have not written the script for that yet. I don't write the script for those episode reviews until the day I shoot them, which is also the day that they are released. Those episode reviews are a one-day thing. I do the whole thing in one day. And now I will have to remember not to use that joke because that's not my joke. That's your joke, and I appreciate you sharing it. But I cannot. I will not. I will not take your joke. I will have to write my own joke. This is the life I've chosen. Anyway, that's the last of the patron and member questions. Now, before we throw the rest of the show over to the live chat, and actually, let me go ahead while I'm thinking about it and turn on the Q&A function. Where are we at? There we go. The Q&A has begun, so go ahead and make use of that if you would like, and I will be checking it after what's going to happen in the next couple of minutes, because it is time for another Stuffy and Friends short. And as always happens, this short will go live as a standalone YouTube short on this channel tomorrow, but because you have the exquisitely good taste to be watching this live stream right now, you get to see this Stuffy short before anybody else. So please do now enjoy this brand new Stuffy and Friends short. Welcome back to Trivicide, the world's most killer quiz show. We've got a three-way tie heading into our final segment. This will decide the game. It's time for the lightning round. Hands on buzzers. And we begin. Which team won baseball's National League pennant in 1983?
The Philadelphia Phillies.
Correct. Point to Stuffy. In an internal combustion engine, what is the function of a cylinder?
The cylinder is the space through which the piston travels, propelled by the energy generated from the combustion of the air-fuel mixture in the combustion chamber.
Correct. Point to Hans. Sounds like you memorized the Wikipedia article.
That is precisely what I did.
What is the approximate temperature of the photosphere of the sun?
10,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Correct. Point to Stuffy.
Oi, would it be possible for you to ask one that I know the bloody answer to?
Don't worry, they get easier from here. Complete the following sequence. 7, 25,000, 493, 8.
Gig Young.
Correct. Point to Hans. What film won Best Picture at the 1942 Oscars?
Citizen Kane.
Technically not correct, but it should have been Citizen Kane, so point to Stuffy.
What the fuck?
What is the best song by Seal?
Crazy.
Yes, objectively the only correct answer. Point to Hans. What did tennis legend John McEnroe once famously say to a line judge?
If I don't win this game, I'll punch your bollocks off.
Correct. Jack wins. There you go. Let me restart the live chat viewer, which is what we customarily do around this time, because for some reason the live chat widget always dies after a certain period of time. And I'm not a fan of it, but it is what it is. That's just what happens. And while we're waiting for that to come back up, I want to acknowledge some of the super chats that were generously thrown my way during the first portion of the show. First, there's one from John Burns. Thank you very much, my friend. That says, Onion, Springsteen, F it, a gig, Freedom 250, I sing. Fortunately, I have seen that Onion article that you are, or that Onion headline that you are referencing, so I was able to decipher what you're typing there. Yes, there's a really funny Onion headline about it's Springsteen says, fuck it, it's a gig, about the Freedom 250 thing. X-Demonox with a super chat that says, money for the profits. Thank you very much, my friend. Here's another one from John Burns, who says, Zelensky wrote a letter to Putin pointing out some facts about the current war entangling both of their countries. War's now in Russia. Thoughts? I mean, I can't say, I mean, I hate that the war is even happening, but I'm not, given what the kind of beating that Ukraine has taken, I'm not terribly heartbroken that they're striking targets in Russia. I'm not happy to see it continuing. I'd like to see it resolved and Ukraine be allowed to, continue going about its business and Russia leave it the fuck alone. But, you reap what you sow. And Vladimir Putin is reaping what he sowed. Here's one from Debbie Bannister. Thank you very much, Debbie. Very, very much appreciated. Hi, Steve. I need to leave. My granddaughter is graduating tonight at 7 p.m. So we need to go and get there early. Bye, everyone. It's almost 6 p.m. Well, thank you very much, Debbie, for being here at all. And congratulations to your granddaughter. Hope she has a good graduation. Zebediah Strange with a super chat says, many humans suck. Trump is definitely human. Boy, ain't that the truth. And there's one from Devin67. It's a rainbow sticker. Thank you very much. Very appropriate given Pride Month. And here's another one from Kirok. Thank you very much, my friend. Says Captain Haverhill was the racist cop who tried to get Fancy out of the bureau. An NYPD Blues first Christmas episode until Andy blackmails the captain. I think I may dimly remember that. Okay, let's see if there's anything else going on in the chat before I see what questions we have. Zulu says, yes, Hans is here. I love Hans. I love Hans too. I'm glad people like Hans. Duralta Trekkie says, Rodimus Prime is your favorite Prime. Cool. I liked him too, although I liked Optimus. Plus Voyager didn't have kids in the audience crying their eyes out. Good point. Duralta Trekkie says, not Kiss from a Rose. Crazy, man. Crazy's the best Seal song. Crazy's the best. I didn't forget Kiss from a Rose. Crazy is the best Seal song. How many times do I have to say it? We're never going to survive unless we get a little crazy. Do you not remember Crazy? I remember Kiss from a Rose. Do you not remember Crazy? Oh, Damien, did you have a member chat in there that I missed? Let me go back and see. Ah, you did. Yes, I'm sorry, man. I jumped straight to John's super chat. Yes, thank you for pointing it out. Member message from Damien Williams. The Silmarillion reads like a bad history book of shit that didn't happen. And I like Lord of the Rings, but I see where you're coming from. Yeah, well, I'm glad I read that one. Thank you very much, my friend. And thank you for being a member. All right, let's see about the and there's another one from Kira, Captain Haverhill. Thank you very much. Captain Haverhill has Kelly transfer out to dispatch. Then finally, he goes on to try to use an informant of Fancy, but it backfires, causing him to retire. Again, I kind of remember. I haven't watched season 1 as much as I've watched the other seasons, but I kind of remember. Okay, let's see what's happening. Let's see what's popping in the Q&A. Geraldo Trekkie asks, when will we get your review of MacGyver's The Visitor? Ooh, I don't have that one planned right now. I would like to do that one eventually, because that is, I mean, talk about goofy MacGyver episodes. That's right up there. I will do that one at some point, but there are a couple of more I want to do before that one. So we'll see. But so don't hold your breath for it, but it's coming at some point. Samadrana 6816 says, are you watching the World Cup? No. I'm not. I can guarantee you I will not be watching any of the World Cup. But I hope everybody who does watch it enjoys it. Geraldo Trekkie says, regarding your awesome review of Deathlock, one can see Pete's German voice actor in the clip from Funeral in Berlin in the opening gambit of this episode. Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's cool. Cynical Optimist says, hey, Steve, hope you're well. I was wondering, given your dislike of high fantasy, do you dislike hard sci-fi for the same reason of it being a lot of details? Do you prefer sci-fi to be softer? It's not as much of a conscious preference as it is with high fantasy, but if I look back across the sci-fi stories that have meant a great deal to me in my life, it does seem that I prefer softer sci-fi to harder sci-fi. I don't like, to me, it doesn't make a difference as long as the story is good. I feel like I say that a lot, but I mean, it's, you know, to me, it's more important. It's more important for me. It's more important to me for a story to feel emotionally plausible than to be technically plausible. I'll put it that way. Like if a writer is drilling down into like technical details of a situation in order to establish that there's like a scientific plot, like I don't care. Does the story feel real emotionally? That's what's going to hook me. You know, if I'm hooked emotionally and I'm bought into the story on an emotional level, even if I notice technical things that are wrong or that couldn't happen, I don't care if I'm invested in the story on an emotional level. Geraldo Trekkie also says, wouldn't Kit and Michael versus Carr and Garth be a more interesting thing? Also pretty cost saving, right? I know, yeah, because it's the same actor in the same car. Yeah, that would be, well, I can't believe they didn't think to put those two together. 255 AD says, how do you think the GOP will change after Trump is gone? The reason I said I think they'll be gone 50 years from now is they seem unwilling to moderate and the U.S. is getting more diverse. I don't know if that will kill the party. I think that'll just it'll just require the party to change. I mean, I think they'll probably become a little bit more moderate after Trump. They'll probably try to move away, from some of the extremes of the Trump era, you know, but I mean that a lot of that will probably just be cosmetic, you know, to try and convince people that they're actually not as bad as they think, you know. But I don't know if their inherent policies will change all that much. Steve Schmeling says, saw Masters of the Universe this morning. Could have been a bit lighter on the humor, but I loved it. I plotzed at the PSA with Orko. Spoilers, Steve. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I kind of wish there was more humor, to be honest. But no, I, as you know, I loved it too. So I'm glad you saw it. I'm glad you liked it. Daryl Lett says, okay, Steve, on YouTube and other platforms, I've gotten ads for Ohio, Colorado, Minnesota, and other states. I live in Michigan. Has that happened to you, getting non-Maryland ads? Every once in a while. Not a lot, but every once in a while, especially if I'm listening to a podcast. Occasionally I'll get, what happens to me? I'll get an ad that is clearly targeted at like and it's not even anywhere close to me. It's not like, oh, they're talking to people in Virginia. I might get an ad. I got one that was clearly targeted at people from Massachusetts. And I thought, well, Maryland, Massachusetts, they're right next to each other alphabetically. Then I think I got one for something in like Connecticut or Vermont or something. I was like, boy, those aren't even close. Yeah, I've had that happen before, mostly with podcasts. Cynical Optimist says, have I ever seen the TV show Legion? I have not. It has been highly recommended to me by others. So I would like to think I would get around to it eventually. The Ultra Trekkie says, if YouTube would fall apart and you need to make your living differently, what would you do? And did you have a weird, annoying application process once? I don't think I ever had a weird or annoying application process. What would I do? I have no idea. Fucking starve. Michael Handeline, what do you mean you gave that voice to Stuffy? That is just the normal voice he has as a very real talking dog. That's what I meant. That's what I meant to say. I must have misspoken. Geralta Trekkie says, the one Batman supernatural story I didn't like when Ivy and the Joker were possessed by some Greek gods. You know that story? That doesn't sound familiar, actually. Cast Iron Chaos says, I think Casablanca won Best Picture. I think it did too. And Sean Connery should have made a cameo appearance in Casablanca. Nowhere Man Child. Teaser images were released for Batman Cape Crusader Season 2. The Riddler will be appearing. Did you see Season 1? What did you think? Myself and my very good bestest friend in the whole world, Jason Harding, attempted to review Season 1 of Batman Cape Crusader, but we both gave up on it about halfway through because neither one of us thought it was very good. So I don't know. I'll probably watch it just to see how it is, but I really lost interest in it. It was just, I liked what I think they were trying to do, but I found it just mostly crushingly dull and really derivative. And it didn't feel like it had a creative reason to exist. It really felt like, let's do another Batman cartoon. And there wasn't anything about it that was compelling enough to make me think, oh, I get why this is a version that needed to exist, So, I haven't seen the teaser images. Like I said, when it comes out, I'll probably at least watch the first episode to see how I like it. But no, I was not really a fan of the first season. Oh, Zulu. Why is Pride Month in June? Because Pride always comes before the fall. Very nice. Very nice. Derota Trekkie says, why didn't the US and Germany learn from Germany's past? In so much as you don't elect people like Trump or the AfD. Well, I think they learned from it for a little while, and now we're forgetting. That's the problem. Whereas Waldo says, I loved your recommendation of Fox Confessor Brings the Flood by Nico Case. Any other artists or albums you'd recommend? Oh my God. Modest Mouse, Built to Spill. I'm stuck. When I was a teenager and young adult, I loved Ben Folds 5. Ben Folds' solo stuff has been very hit and miss with me, but the classic Ben Folds 5 stuff from the 90s is still just absolute peak for me. And you can't go wrong with Johnny Cash. A lot of classic country music I really enjoy. I love Johnny Cash. I love Willie Nelson. Hank Williams Sr., quite possibly the best songwriter who ever lived, at least the best English language songwriter who ever lived. Geralta Trekkie says, if you watch Poirot, do you also watch Miss Fisher or Detective Conan or Sherlock? I've seen all the episodes of Sherlock. And boy, is it really good for a while? And then does it go downhill? Holy shit. And Deralta Trekkie also says Hollywood learning the wrong lesson. And we're back to the Stargate topic. The industry doesn't learn any lesson. Yeah, sometimes that happens too. And then another one from Deralta Trekkie. Deralta Trekkie is full of questions. Concerning Assassin 33 AD, I can recommend Andreas Eschbach's novel Das Jesus Video, if there is an English version. Okay. Joe goes over, what would you estimate your sub count was where you could justify going full-time on YouTube? I can't remember. In the tens of thousands. It wasn't just the sub count, it was also the revenue. And it was when I was making enough, when my wife was still working at the time and I was making enough revenue to be able to start to like cover our bills, to cover our rent, just from what I was making from YouTube. That was when I thought, oh yeah, this is, I should keep doing this. 255 AD says, when will you review the MacGyver spinoff where he joined the Air Force and visited other planets? It's back to Stargate again. Caitlin says, I would wager it's not the film is bad without pot, but more the film is even better with, when people say that. Like pizza. Pizza is great anytime, but stoned pizza is the nectar of the gods. That makes sense. You're right. I'm sure that's what people mean. Damien says, do you have any retroactive comedy that you can think of after later episodes? Like kind of like the Worf thing. Not really. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer. Not really. Deralta Trekkie says, when I hear about SSDI and EBT cards, and we have thoughts like that in Germany too, I can't help but think, are we governed by Ferengi? I mean, I can tell you here in the US at least, yes, we are. We very much are. Nowhere Man Child said, I love your best Batman ever deep dives. Well, good, because there's another one coming. I'm shooting another one this weekend. What are your thoughts about the character of Harold in the Batcave? I like Harold. I think Harold's like a fun little addition. He fills a little gap if you care about that, which is how does Batman have time to invent all that shit? Well, when Harold's around, he doesn't. Harold does that. I just think, and it's another weird little detail. And I like weirdness in Batman. I don't necessarily go straight to the supernatural, but the little weird stuff, the kind of oddball stuff, I kind of dig that, and the idea that there's like a guy who lives in the Batcave and just does most of Batman's tech support. Like I kind of dig that. That's just goofy enough to work. Cast Iron Chaos says, I'm not trying to force Moorcock into this channel. Just wanted to say that to begin with Moorcock, read his short story collection, The Stealer of Souls. If I ever want Moorcock, that's where I'll start. Deralta Trekkie says, I watched Merlin. Anthony Head was there as Uther Pendragon. Did you watch that show too? Uther was an absolute asshole. What's your favorite Uther moment? Never watched it. Can't tell you. Cynical Optimist says, thoughts on reparations for slavery / colonization. If in favor, how do you imagine it could work? Rather than individual payments, investing in the country / communities that were harmed, for example. I am in favor of it. And honestly, I think anything would be better than nothing. Whether they could somehow work out a way to pay individuals who are like descended from people affected by it, or whether it would be more of a community-wide investment. I think either of those could work and would certainly be better than just trying to pretend it never happened. Deralta Trekkie says, what do you say about the complete nixing of Stargate as now done by him? Honestly, I've seen people talking about it and posting video. I saw Jesse Gender posted a video about it that I haven't had a chance to watch. I really don't know anything about it. So I don't really have I really don't have a strong opinion on it yet. 255 AD says, do you find asshole characters less annoying if they're in a situation where it's somewhat an understandable reaction? Like the Doctor in early Voyager seasons. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, an asshole character can still be sympathetic and compelling. Just because a character is an asshole doesn't necessarily mean I'm not going to like them as a character. The problem I have is when a character is an asshole but is completely unlikable or not compelling as a character. Zulu Romeo says there's a new James Bond game out now. People love it. Also, internet incels really hate it because incel things and apparent wokery, and the meltdowns are a joy to watch. And I mean, I like it because it allows me to sort of have a secondhand enjoyment of a game that I'm probably never going to play. But I can still get something positive out of it by watching all these fucking man baby chuds lose their shit over it. Geralta Trekkie says SG1 versus elves, P90 versus magic. And what about SG1 versus people like Tinkerbell? Tiny elves? Sure, whatever you say. Steve Schmeling says about your last review, Picard, activate transporter order 14. Riker, how many STDs did you get? Picard, that's order 13, and that only applies to you. I like that. That's a solid joke. I like that. Cast Iron Chaos. I gotcha. Sean Connery should have made because they were playing Jeopardy. Well, they were playing a trivia game. It was not actually Jeopardy because they did not have to answer in the form of a question, and there was not a board. I, as the host, was selecting the question. But yes, I get it. I get the Sean Connery reference. Yes, I couldn't afford Sean Connery. First of all, I think he's dead. Isn't he dead? Or at the very least, he's retired. Gods of Gotham. Thank you, Geralta Trekkie. That's the supernatural story that was referenced earlier. And then Geralta Trekkie also says, don't know if in the USA the word mindset is also used for this problem, but in Germany, some idiots say, why should we pay for you? And two, it's your mindset. That's the problem. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. We've got that over here too. Noam Chomsky says, are you and Jason going to review Strange New World Season 4? I don't know. We haven't talked about it. Jason has been kind of negative on Star Trek recently. I mean, obviously, we're still doing our Ensign's Log show, but he has not been terribly enthusiastic about Star Trek in general recently. So I don't know if he's even planning to watch it, let alone watch it with me and review it. But if he wanted to, I would love to. I'll switch back. I'll see you, Caitlin. I'll switch back to the chat in a minute. I'm trying to get through all the questions on screen, and then I'll chat, and then I'll switch back over. Kid-oriented YouTube channels are the most popular. Cast Iron Chaos says kids-oriented YouTube channels are the most popular things on YouTube, and mostly incredibly idiotic brain rot. Last week I watched this horrible thing called Topper Guild. Kill me. I have no interest in that whatsoever. 35 AD says, wouldn't Ferengi care more about keeping the economy running? Yeah, but I mean, let's not give him too much credit. Isaiah, Sinister Intelligence, says, not a question, but I've watched Romy and Michelle's high school reunion high. I had a rip-roaring time. Well, good for you, my friend. Derogatory Trekkie says, regarding L. Ron Hubbard, today German YouTuber Malternative made a video about Scientology. Highly recommended. It was quite fun. I'll check it out, or I will make a note to check it out. No promises that I'm actually ever going to watch it. Steve Schmaling says, I recently saw an episode of Murder, She Wrote where Kate Mulgrew was not only the murderer, she was a soap actor and gloriously hammed it up. Would you like Voyager more if she brought that energy? I'd probably like everything more if more actors brought that energy. I think I remember that episode as well. Cast Iron Chaos says, he's dead, Steve. Or rather, he's dead, Steve. He's dead. Sean Connery's dead. He's not coming back. They sent him to the morgue. I sent one of them to the hospital, so they sent me to the morgue. 255 AD says, is Gods and Generals lost cause propaganda? Oh boy, yeah. That is but one of its offenses. But yeah, it definitely is. Okay, Geralta Trekkie says, I watched John Wick 1 and 2, and I'm like, I have nothing against a simple script, but that's downright stupid. What did you think about the movies? I loved John Wick 1. I have very little use for any of the rest of them. After John Wick 1, they just keep getting longer and longer and more complicated and more up their own ass with their fucking lore and the intricacies of the fucking Hitman world, and I do not give a single fuck. But the first John Wick I thought was terrific. Okay, back over to the live chat. Let's see. Oh, there's a bunch more super chats as well. Let me see what's going on in the live chat before I acknowledge some more of the super chats. Blade Winter says, I disagree. He-Man should be funnier and campier. You disagree with that assertion? You think it shouldn't be funnier and campier, or you disagree, comma, it should be funnier and campier? Zebediah Strange says Street Fighter seems it's going to have plenty of humor. Yeah, that's how it looks from the previews I've seen. Joe goes over. You can hardly even know that it's Jared Leto. Like Jared Leto is Skeletor, but you don't get Jared Leto vibes from him. Yeah. Let me go through the supers. Thank you, Caitlin. Caitlin's keeping me straight here. Okay. So Cast Iron Chaos says, thank you very much, as Michael Moorcock led the fantasy fiction rebellion against Tolkien in the 60s and 70s. In sci-fi circles, he's a pioneer, though his writing is unabashedly pulpy and his sci-fi is largely magical sci-fi. I mean, unabashedly pulpy makes my ears perk up a little. Member message from Brian Baker. Thank you, my friend. Says, Steve, I live in Nebraska and Google is building power plants for information centers. Why are corporations allowed to privatize public utilities? That's a good question that we should be asking our politicians, don't you think? Kirog with a super chat says, contentious question, but I have been invited to a stream by a guy name Owen, a guy you know. What would you say is the difference? Commerce versus capital. Oh, okay. I think Owen. I think I was on one of his streams a couple years ago. What is the difference between commerce versus capitalism? Is there a difference? That's too. I don't know. It's getting late, man. I have no idea. I don't know. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the question, but I don't know. And at this very moment, I don't really care. So my apologies, but best of luck on the stream if you decide to go. Zabadiah Strange with a super chat says, have you read Chairman Meow and the Protectors of the Proletariat? If not, please do and give us your take. I have not, but if I do, I will. Agent Meister, thank you very much, my friend, says, who would you rather have a soda with, Steve Rogers or Tony Stark? Steve Rogers all day. Yes, Steve Rogers. Kirok says, name a likable asshole character. Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Gregory House, which is kind of cheating because he's also Sherlock Holmes. Tony Stark, even though I would prefer to hang out with Steve Rogers. Tony Stark, likable asshole character. In certain versions, Batman. And here's one from Devon67. Thank you, my friend. Whenever the average conservative says the word female, it sounds like they say the word with the same disdain as the Ferengi. That's because they do. That's because that's how, even if it's not how they say it, that's how they mean it. And let me go back through the regular chat now. I saw one from Aaron Sunks. Kate Mulgrew got her start as an actress on a soap opera called Ryan's Hope. A few Irish accents were thrown around on that show too. I never watched Ryan's Hope, but I am familiar with its existence. Thanks, Noam Chomsky. That was my favorite. That was my best Connery impression that I've ever done, and it was still bad. Well, both of those can be very true. Blade Winter says Skeletor shouldn't have a deep voice. And yet he does in the movie, and it works beautifully, I think. Like, I honestly don't care. The thing that made me like Skeletor in the movie was that he was funny. Yeah, his voice is different. Okay, so what? I don't care. I don't want to be thrown. Well, who says he shouldn't have a deep voice because he has a high-pitched voice in the cartoon? Like, what does that mean? So because he has a certain kind of voice in the cartoon, he has to have that same voice in the movie? I don't go along with that. I think Skeletor works in the movie because he's funny. His voice is different. He has an accent that he doesn't have in the show. Who fucking cares? He's funny. He works. Steve Schmaling says, I thought Leto did a great job. He invoked the portrayal in the cartoon with a healthy dash of Langella's performance. Yeah, there's a little bit of Langella in that. I mean, Frank Langella didn't do a high-pitched voice either. Yeah. There's a good answer. I don't know. What is the difference between commerce and capitalism? Zula Romeo says Alan Oppenheimer is still the best Skeletor. Well, of course. Of course. Skeletor, I mean, I love Skeletor on the cartoon, and I love Alan Oppenheimer's Skeletor. It's absolutely one of my favorite things ever. 255 AD says Sean Connery was 12 when Casablanca. I was kind of thinking he'd be a little young. Like, who was he going to play? 255 AD says Jared Leto didn't ruin a movie. No. I thought, in fact, as I said in my review, it's hard to know how much of what you're seeing is Jared Leto and how much is just stuff kind of layered over Jared Leto's performance. But no, Skeletor is really good in the movie. Like, Skeletor, not only did Jared Leto not ruin it, his contribution to it is very good. And I know it feels weird saying that. It feels weird for me to say it, but nonetheless. Alta Trekkie says Alan Oppenheimer or Frank Welker, who's better? I mean, Frank Welker's a lot more versatile. Like, I mean, I know Alan Oppenheimer did a lot more voice acting than just Skeletor. But I mean, Frank Welker is one of the all-time great voice actors ever. I think you got to give it to Frank Welker. Let me go back to the question tab here for a couple. Sinister Intelligence says, have you seen World War II in HD narrated by Gary Sinise? I watched it over the course of Memorial Day. Such a gripping doc. I cried at times. Tears of joy, tears of horror. Not a good war. No, I have not seen that. Did you ever watch Ken Burns's The War, which is also about World War II? I recommend that very highly as well. 255 AD, this is good. Would it be funny if they cast another South Northeast Asian man as Superman just to see Dean Cain pretend he's okay with how the right would react today? I would love that. Zulu Romeo says Backrooms the movie, yay or nay? I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know, but I never saw the online version of Backrooms either. Like, I'm completely ignorant to the whole Backrooms thing. I will see the movie at some point, and I'll let you know what I think of it, but I haven't seen it yet. Simon Moody says, you said you like the Orville. What about Ted? Is that too? No, I haven't seen any of the Ted TV series, but I like the movies a lot. I thought the movies were really funny. Yeah, I thought the movies were really funny. I think I answered that one already, Delta Trekkie, about MacGyver the Visit. I answered that already. I'll do it at some point. On another, and there's another one. That might be a glitch. I'm getting questions that were already asked. Anyway, about Sinister Intelligence says, I started it, made it half war. Need to rewatch it. Yeah, I really liked Ken Burns' World War II series. 2-5 AD says, so Jared Leto is a good actor when you can barely tell it's him. Maybe that's the secret. Cast Iron Chaos says, apologies for harping on Moorcock. You know, if you want to harp on Moorcock, that's completely fine with me. I have no objection to it. I felt it was necessary to explain him when you said you never heard of him. His Elric stories were largely stolen by The Witcher, which I've also had absolutely no exposure to at all. So I wouldn't know the difference. Let's see. Oh, Joe goes over. Frank Welker is who Mel Blanc wishes he could have been. Damn. Yeah, fuck you, Mel Blanc. Joe goes over and asks, and I know this is about Jared Leto. You don't even have to mention it. Did he mail his fellow actors like rat skeletons this time around? I don't know. I mean, I hope not. Zulu Romeo says, my favorite thing about those films is that Ted talks. Well, isn't that kind of that's like the premise though? That's like saying my favorite thing about Star Trek is that they're in space. Like that's the premise. He's a talking bear. That's the whole premise. Oh, Damien says it's safe to say you love Ken Burns baseball. Yes. Yes, it's very safe to say that. No, I love Ken Burns' baseball. Yes. Ken Burns is I mean, I love pretty much everything Ken Burns has ever done, but especially the Civil War and baseball are his two things where like I could just watch a random episode of either one of those at pretty much any time and have a great time. You know, yeah, there are times when I'm bored and I feel like watching something, but I don't feel like watching something unfamiliar. I don't want to watch like a new movie, and I'll just put on, an episode of the Civil War or an episode of baseball, and just it's yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of Ken Burns' baseball. Zulu Romeo, thanks for coming to see Ted talk. Did they ever do an episode of the show where Ted gives a TED talk? They should do that. Yes, Caitlin, there was a Man from Uncle film starring erstwhile Superman Henry Cavill. Yes, I never saw it. Some people who saw it thought it was good. Steve Schmaling, you are all but worms. Did he call us butt worms? I love that was Duncan's line. Yeah, there were some there are some really funny lines in the movie. I liked a lot of the jokes. Okay, CMAC. I'm not always so quick on the uptake. The fact that Ted talks was the joke. You come sneaking in and you get your little digs in. There's no crying in baseball. I mean, sometimes there is. I mean, sometimes there is. I'm trying to think of like parts of the Ken Burns baseball documentary that might potentially make me cry. I don't know if it ever has made me actually cry. But if I was going to cry at some point during the Ken Burns baseball series, maybe the death of Christy Mathewson. That's pretty close. Maybe the death of Christy Mathewson. Or the fact that Jackie Robinson died before there was a black baseball manager, even though that was like a real goal of his late in his life, and he never actually saw that happen. Geraldo Trekkie, ask Ben Sisko. I'm sure he cried when the Pike City Pioneers lost. Yeah, he was. I guess he was. He was like, he was a diehard fan of that team right away. Caitlin says you were bang on with your Catholic attitude comparison. Yeah, they seem very similar. The Catholic attitude and the baseball fan attitude, especially if you're a longtime baseball fan of a struggling team. It's like, oh, those two things seem really, really close. Well, Zulu Romeo says something interesting. You genuinely preferred the Flash Gordon movie to Star Wars. That's interesting. I mean, I love the Flash Gordon movie. Right? I mean, I think Flash Gordon is fantastic. It is, but yeah, I don't even though like obviously they're related because like Star Wars in many ways is derived from the Flash Gordon serials. Not just Flash Gordon, but a lot of those old 1930s and 40s sci-fi serials. But Flash Gordon is obviously a very strong influence on it. But yet, for some reason, I don't usually think of like the Flash Gordon movie and Star Wars in the same breath. I guess because they're so different tonally. Yeah. Um, Damian Williams is Pirates fan. I get it. Yeah. Orioles fan. Caitlin says, my father was raised in a Catholic family, even though he doesn't believe himself, and he hates supporting winning teams, not in baseball, but the same attitude. Literally, when his home team starts doing too well, he has a different, even more underdoggy team he roots for. That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Yeah, Noam Chomsky says the Vatican is not a struggling team. Well, that's not really the point. You're not rooting for the Vatican as a team, but it's more like the attitude, the worldview that kind of focuses on misery and suffering, and we just have to get through this, like that kind of thing. And Deralta Trekkie, I never watched that Flash Gordon series. Cast Iron Chaos says, how would you compare the new He-Man to the Flash Gordon movie in terms of campiness? I think the Flash Gordon movie is a lot campier. Yeah, I don't think the new He-Man movie is campy necessarily. It's funny, and it's written with a really great sense of humor about the source material and about itself. And it embraces its own silliness in a really wonderful way. I don't know if I would call it campy. I don't think it's campy. Donna Marchese says, since you like Ken Burns' Civil War and you live in Maryland, have you ever gone to see the sites there having to do with both? When I lived in when I was married, we lived in Sharpsburg, which is like right on the doorstep of the Antietam battlefield. So I've been there more times than I can remember. And even now where I live now, I'm only maybe a 10-minute drive from Antietam. And when I have time, I still like to go there and just go for walks because the Antietam battlefield is just a beautiful place. And I've I've seen pretty much all of it. So yes. CMX says, I'm just laughing at how badly my Red Sox are doing this year. Yeah, new and creative ways to lose. Well, the wheel turns, my friend, doesn't it? We have ups and we have downs. The wheel turns. Damien Williams says, Steve, you cool with a lockout for a hard cap? I am. Yeah, look, I am always on the side of the players. I'm always on the side of the players. If they cannot reach a resolution and the owners insist on a hard salary cap and that is not workable for the players and they feel like they have no choice, then I'm all for it. I'm, when strikes happen, I'm on the side of the workers. And in this case, the workers are the players. And here's a super chat from Kurok. Sorry, I haven't been ignoring it. I've just been trying to go through other things. Will you be going to see Star Wars, the unremastered version in theaters? No, I'm definitely going to, or is this overrated you? No, I'm definitely going to go see it. No, man, I went to see all of the special editions when they came out in theaters. And I loved it. I mean, even though I'm not a big fan of the special editions compared to the originals, and I don't really think the special editions were necessary, I love that. I have incredibly fond memories of seeing those movies on the big screen. And I am really looking forward to seeing the original theatrical cuts restored and back on the big screen. I will be there. I will be there to see the original version of Star Wars on the big screen. Absolutely. I am really looking forward to it. Blade Winter says, should the He-Man movie be campy? No, I don't think it's embarrassed by the names of it. I think it has fun with it. The thing you're talking about with the He-Man movie is they do a thing in the He-Man movie where the names of the familiar names of the characters, like Mechanic and Mossman and Fisto, they're explained by having them be nicknames that Adam gave them as a child. So it's like, why would there ever be a person named Ram Man? Well, because a 10-year-old named him that, right? And it's not like his actual name. That's just what Adam called him. So they do that to explain the names. I don't think that's necessary. I think they could have, I mean, it's a He-Man movie. They could have just said, oh, here's this guy. His name is Ram Man. Like, that's completely fine because it's a goofy thing to begin with. So I don't think there needs to be like an explanation as to why are they called such crazy names? Like, because they are. But I don't object to them doing that in the movie. I think it works in the movie. And it does build up to a payoff with, when we hear the name He-Man for the first time. Like, I think that is a solid enough payoff to it to kind of justify having it in the movie. I mean, I kind of agree. Like, I don't like it's just call them what they're called. This is silly. Everybody knows this is silly. We don't need to explain it. But the way they do it, I think, works fine. 2-5AD says, was that pronoun joke in the actual movie? The shot is, yeah. The shot from the trailer where it says, Adam Glenn, pronouns he, him, like on his nameplate. Yeah, that shot is in the movie. That's the only reference to it. That's the only pronoun joke. That's the only pronoun joke of that type in the movie that I remember. So it's not like a thing. There's not like a whole bit about pronouns. But yeah, that shot is in the movie. Yeah. Ice Cold says, what do you think of X-Men? Do you think they should take their time with it? You mean as in like bringing the X-Men into the MCU now? I mean, I don't think they need to take their time with it. My idea for how to incorporate the X-Men into the MCU is to just immediately start acting like they've always been there. Like that to me is the best way to do it. That's obviously not how they're going to do it. They're probably going to use like the multiverse stuff in the next 2 Avengers movies to kind of bring everything in, which I'm sure as long as the movies are good, that's fine. I don't give a fuck. But to me, there's no reason not to just say, oh yeah, we have all these X-Men movies that, they made over, when Fox was a separate studio and now Disney owns Fox and we're going to bring it all together. So let's just fucking do it. Oh, hey, the X-Men. Everybody knows the X-Men. They've been here all along. Like, just fucking do that. Like, there's no reason not to do that. But that's not what they're going to do. And if whatever they do works, then it'll be fine with me. But yeah, I mean, my idea certainly wasn't taking their time. It was just say, yeah, just fuck it. That's all the same thing now. Fuck it. Kind of like how they do when they do intercompany crossovers in the comics, when they do like Superman meets Spider-Man. And I think there's a new Superman meets Spider-Man, isn't there? I haven't read that one yet. But the classic one from like the 70s, or when they would do like, and when I was reading comics in the 90s, there was a Batman Spider-Man, there was a Batman Punisher. And just, they treat it like they just exist in the same world. Like there's no portal between universes that one of them crosses over. It's just Batman is doing his thing and he runs into Spider-Man. And he's like, what are you doing here? This isn't your business. And, and then they just do it. They just tell the story. Like, just do that. Fuck it. Just do that. Yeah, see, Mac, as far as like, yeah, the black leather, yellow spandex. Yeah, I mean, and look, that is definitely um the more recent superhero movies are definitely less embarrassed to be superhero movies than superhero movies were in the 90s and early 2000s. You know, and I do think that's one of the main reasons why the X-Men dressed like that in the X-Men movies. Um, is because there was an idea, well, we can't have them have costumes that look like the comics. That would be ridiculous. Like, heaven forbid. You know, and I think a lot of the fact that these movies have made so much goddamn money has kind of eased that tension. So people are like, yeah, sure, you know, let them just dress them however they look in the comics. Who fucking cares? If the movie's good, nobody's gonna care. You know. Steve Schmaling says you should review Archie meets the Punisher. I should. It's been a long time since I've read that. I should. Oh, Derogatory Trek, he says, who's your favorite MacGyver? The OG one, his nephew, or Lucas Till? Classic MacGyver. Classic MacGyver. Noam Chomsky says, the new Punisher short. I loved it. I loved it. I love the new Punisher short. Okay, I'm going to begin pulling this train into the station. It's about a little more than 8:15 over here. So I will come back and take one last look at the chat and check to see if there are any questions that I have missed. And then we will call these festivities to a close for another week, or another fortnight, I guess. First of all, thank you to all of you who have watched this and enjoyed it and liked it and shared it and, you know, done all the things that you do on YouTube to help out a video. I really appreciate that. It makes a big difference. It helps me to continue to do this. And if you have enjoyed it enough that you would like to take another step and help me to continue doing this, I would love it if you can afford it. And if you think I'm worth it, if you would consider becoming a financial supporter of the channel. And you can do that in a couple of ways. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives and become a patron. Or you can click the join button right here on the YouTube channel and become a channel member for as little as $1 a month. You can give me more than that if you can afford it and if you think I'm worth it. But even if you can only afford $1 a month, believe me, that those add up and that makes a difference. And I really, really appreciate it, no matter what amount of pledge that you decide to give. But I could not do this without my Patreon patrons and my channel members. And if you become a patron or a member at any level from $1 a month on up, one of the benefits that you get access to, if you would like to take advantage of it, is you get to submit questions ahead of time before the show. And those are the questions that I read and respond to in the first part of the show. So if that sounds interesting to you, or if you just want to help me out and help me to continue doing this, patreon.com/Steve Shives, or click the join button to become a member. And once again, thank you to everybody who is already a member or a patron, because you enable me to continue doing this. Also, don't forget, if you enjoy the YouTube stuff that I do, I also do a couple of podcasts that are a part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts. There is Late Seating, the movie review podcast, where Jason Harding and I take a look at a classic film and see if that film lives up to its reputation, whether it's good or bad. Our most recent episode is Jason's birthday movie, which is the Speed Racer movie, which has a lot in common with the He-Man movie I just saw. And in a lot of ways, they were very similar experiences, I think. And I think perhaps my experience watching the new Masters of the Universe movie is somewhat similar to what Jason's experience was when he first watched the Speed Racer movie. So anyway, you can watch our review of Speed. You can listen to our review of Speed Racer. Actually, if you're a patron of the Late Seating podcast, if you're a Let Me Listen patron, which is a separate Patreon from mine, you can watch us review the movie. There is a video version that you can access, but most of you will listen to it. And also, in addition to that, there is the Ensign's Log podcast, which is the Star Trek themed improv comedy podcast that I and Jason and our friend Amanda Billings do where we play original characters who exist in the Star Trek universe, and kind of like stuff from the Star Trek shows is happening in the background, while the focus of the show is our original characters and our stories and our various misadventures. It's a really fun show to do. I've understood that most people who listen to it think it's a fun show to listen to. So if you've never listened to it and you enjoy Star Trek and you enjoy funny Star Trek and stuff that kind of satirizes or makes fun of Star Trek or has fun with Star Trek, you might want to check out the Ensign's log. And links are in the description. And also you can go to the URL on your screen at the moment. And also, last but certainly not least, please do not forget our friends who need a helping hand. Some Random Geek was sharing links in the chat earlier. You can find all of the links he was sharing and more at charitylinks.page, which is where you can go to find, GoFundMe's and PayPal's and various other resources that you can contribute to help out some friends of ours who need a helping hand, who are having trouble keeping the bills paid or putting food on the table. If you have a few extra bucks left over and you would like to put them toward a good cause, please consider helping some of our friends out that you can find listed in charitylinks.page. And now, let me turn to the live chat one last time. I've seen some super chats drop in that I have not acknowledged. I think there's one here from Zabadiah Strange. Thank you, my friend. Says, the bastion has fallen. The party, which had gone astray from the path, had no chance under the relentless siege by Dee Dee and her imperialist running dogs. Boy, you said it. Let me see. Well, are there any other questions that have come in? I believe maybe there are a few. No, actually, I don't think there are. I don't see any more. I don't see any more unless there's something wrong with the. No, here's one from 255. Was the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy kind of unique in the early 2000s for not being self-serious or embarrassed to be a comic book movie? Yes. And I don't know if the Spider-Man trilogy gets the credit it deserves for being a precursor to the MCU, because I mean, even though obviously the main seed of the MCU and the movie that is the most responsible for how the MCU turned out, both creatively and commercially, is Iron Man, obviously. That really set the tone for the entire project. And thank God Iron Man was a great movie and had the tone that it had and the attitude toward its source material that it had. But yeah, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, yeah, absolutely. Sam Raimi was not embarrassed to be making a Spider-Man movie. Sam Raimi loved Spider-Man. Sam Raimi knew how to embrace the silliness of the concept while also telling a story that had real emotional stakes and made you give a shit about the characters. So yeah, I think the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy was very important, in addition to being great in its own right. Yes, Zulu Romeo, the Speed Racer movie does have Jack from Lost. I've never seen Lost, but I do happen to know that. Yes. Aaron Sunk said, oh, somebody's going to care how the X-Men look. And they're going to have a long-ass Reddit post about it. And I will not read it, and neither should you. Sam Raimi never directed a scene that embarrassed him, says Joe Goes Over. God love him. God love him. And yeah, Zulu, you're right. As far as Downey Jr. and Tony Stark, it was the role he was born to play. It rejuvenated his career and it gave birth to the MCU. Like Iron Man is the movie that deserves credit for creating the MCU. And if there's one person that deserves credit for creating the MCU, and obviously it's way more than one person, but if you were going to distill it down to one person, it's Robert Downey Jr. because his performance as Tony Stark sets the tone for that movie, and the movie and his performance in it sets the tone for the entire project. The entire MCU grows from the performance Robert Downey Jr. gave in that movie. It's really extraordinary. And again, obviously, dozens, hundreds, thousands of other people have contributed to it to make it what it is. But Robert Downey Jr. played a huge role in it. John Stewart says, you ever read any of the He-Man comics? A few, yes. I've read some of the more recent ones. It's been a while, but yes, I did read some of the more recent ones. I thought they were pretty good. And I think I'm trying to think of what crossovers I've read. I can't remember. I know I've read some of the more recent comics, and I got like a digital copy of like a collection of all of the classic mini comics that came with the figures many years ago. When I read those and had a wonderful time too, because I got a lot of them originally when I was a kid, and I got the He-Man figures. I got the comics that came with them as well, but I didn't get all of them, and so yeah, reading those mini comics was a lot of fun too. Damien Williams says, do you like the Downey Sherlock films? I do. Yes, I do. Not my favorite version of Sherlock Holmes, not necessarily the version of Sherlock Holmes that I would want to see, but no, I think they were both very good. Yeah. I think they do Sherlock Holmes as an action hero, and it's an interesting twist. It's a different interpretation of the character, and I think they're both really good. And the second one has fucking Jared Harris as Moriarty. Thank you. I'm here. I'm ready. Like, you got my attention. Yeah. 285 AD says, did you ever read the Amalgam Universe comics? I read a couple of them. None of them made a huge impression on me, but I remember reading a couple of them when they came out. Okay, last question from Deralta Trekkie. It's a Godzilla question. I will answer this, and then that's the end of the stream. What's your favorite Godzilla? The best Godzilla movie is Godzilla -1, and it's not even close. But for me personally, in my heart, my favorite Godzilla is the Godzilla from the late 60s and early 70s. The Godzilla of like Godzilla versus Megalon, and that era, like the late 60s, early 70s Godzilla, where it was good guy Godzilla, and he would team up with other monsters to fight even worse monsters. Yeah, that's my personal favorite Godzilla. But the best Godzilla movie is clearly Godzilla -1. That's a Godzilla. You ever want to watch a Godzilla movie that'll make you cry? Godzilla -1, baby. Fantastic. All right. Yes, Caitlin, you're absolutely right. Jared Harris is amazing. One of my very, very, very favorite actors. Every time I see him in something, I'm like, oh, thank God Jared Harris is in this. He's so good. Anyway, thank you all very, very much for being with me. I really appreciated all of the comments, all of the great questions. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again. We'll do this one more time. Not just one more time, many other times into the future. I have no intention of stopping, but we'll do this again in 2 weeks. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the attention. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. And take care, everybody.